They listen to you or they don't. They follow your direction or they wander. They respect your words or they doubt your authority. And all of that comes down to how you speak. Because in this world, you don't lead by just working hard or having the best ideas. You lead by communicating powerfully with clarity, confidence, and conviction. That's the difference between a boss and a leader, between someone who gets ignored and someone who gets followed. If you want to walk into a room and have people sit up straighter, if you want to say something once and have people act like it was a command carved in stone, if you want to influence, inspire, and lead, then you must master one skill: how to talk like a leader. Let's break it down. Most people believe authority comes from a title, a promotion, or a nameplate on the door. But true authority doesn't wait for permission. It begins with how you carry yourself and, more importantly, how you use your voice. The moment you speak, people make a decision, whether to lean in or tune out, whether to follow you or dismiss you. That decision has less to do with what you're saying and more to do with how. This is why leaders are often recognized before they are officially appointed, because they already speak like one. Your voice is the first signal of your internal belief. A voice that is steady, calm, and confident naturally attracts respect. It tells the listener, I know what I'm talking about. I believe in what I'm saying. I am not trying to dominate. I am here to direct. A leader's voice doesn't tremble with insecurity. It doesn't fluctuate with fear. It's not rushed, and it's never frantic. Instead, it's firm, paced, and intentional. It's a voice that speaks from the chest, not from the throat. It's grounded in truth, not in the need to impress. People often make the mistake of thinking that speaking louder means speaking with authority, but volume is not what earns respect. Composure is. The people who command the most attention are not always the ones who raise their voices. They are the ones who make others lower theirs just to hear them. When someone speaks with certainty, others naturally quiet down to listen. Their words don't need to compete for space. They own their voice creates an atmosphere where every syllable matters. Slowing down is one of the simplest but most powerful tools to amplify authority. Nervous people speak quickly. They try to rush through their sentences as if trying to finish before someone interrupts or disagrees. But leaders speak with the assumption that they will be heard. They don't rush. They don't beg for time. They take it. A well-paced sentence followed by a purposeful pause delivers more impact than 100 rushed words. When you slow your speech, you show control. When you pause, you demonstrate that your message is valuable enough to be absorbed. Tone is another critical element that separates true leaders from the rest. A confident tone isn't cold or robotic. It's calm and firm. It conveys clarity, direction, and trustworthiness. It says, I know where we're going, and I'm not afraid to lead the way. Even in uncertainty, a leader doesn't allow panic to seep into their voice. Their tone remains steady. It reassures others. It carries a sense of, we'll figure this out, without ever needing to shout it. People are drawn to that kind of voice, not because it is loud, but because it is dependable. The foundation of speaking with authority is inner belief. You cannot fake true conviction. If you do not believe in yourself, your audience won't either. This is why leadership begins long before the words are spoken. It begins in the internal dialogue, the way you think about yourself, your message, and your worth. The voice you use with the world is a reflection of the voice you use inside your head. If your internal voice is filled with doubt, fear, and hesitation, your external voice will reflect that. But if your internal voice says, I've got this, your external one will carry the strength to prove it. Speaking with intent is one of the most distinguishing qualities of a true leader. Every word you say should serve a purpose. Leaders don't ramble, they don't talk just to fill silence, and they certainly don't speak to please everyone. They communicate to direct, to influence, and to move others toward clarity or action. When a leader speaks, there is weight behind the words. They've thought before they spoke. There's no fluff, no verbal clutter, just meaningful communication that pushes people forward. When you speak with intent, you eliminate the unnecessary and spotlight the essential. People can feel the difference between someone who's just talking and someone who's delivering a message that matters. Intentional speech carries energy. It wakes people up. It disrupts the normal rhythm of passive listening. When you're intentional with your words, your sentences hit like commands, not because they're forceful, but because they're precise. It's not about barking orders. It's about creating focus. You're not just giving information, you're shaping direction. Your words have a target and every sentence aims directly at it. Leaders avoid filler language because it muddies the message. Phrases like, I think, maybe, kind of, or I'm not sure, but are signs of insecurity. They dilute your point. They leave room for doubt. When you speak with intent, you don't second guess your voice. You say what you mean and you mean what you say. There's no passive aggressive undertone. There's no begging for approval in your tone. There's clarity, conviction, and purpose. People follow those who sound like they know where they're going. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be intentional. Another aspect of intentional speech is emotional discipline. You don't let your emotions hijack your message. You remain in control of the energy you transmit. If you're angry, you don't lash out. If you're passionate, you don't overwhelm. You channel emotions strategically, like a tool, not like an uncontrolled flame. Intentional speakers know when to raise the temperature and when to cool the room down. They adapt their tone, pace, and expression to match the moment while keeping their core message sharp. That level of control builds trust. People feel safer around those who don't let feelings dictate every word they say. Intentional speaking also means thinking about impact before expression. Before you speak, you ask yourself, what's the goal of what I'm about to say? Am I trying to inspire, correct, clarify, reinforce, direct? Leaders don't speak to be heard. They speak to create change, even if it's small. They understand the ripple effect of a single sentence spoken with purpose. Words shape mood, words shift culture. Words align people. And so the leader uses language like a sculptor uses tools, with precision, patience, and power. To speak with intent, you must also listen with intent. You don't just wait for your turn to talk. You absorb, you study, you understand where people are before you guide them to where they need to be. Great leaders are great communicators because they're great listeners first. They pick up on tone, subtext, energy. They don't just respond to what's said, they respond to what's meant. Then they speak with insight and precision. This level of intentionality makes your words carry more weight because they're born out of awareness, not assumption. Speaking with intent is the opposite of trying to impress. It's not about big words or complicated ideas. In fact, most of the time, it's about saying less, but saying it better. It's about trimming the fat, cutting through the fog, and delivering the message in a way that sticks. You don't waste people's time. You respect the moment, and in return, the moment respects you. Leadership is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the most compelling. Many assume that to be taken seriously, they must raise their volume, dominate conversations, and speak over others. But true influence doesn't come from how loud you are. It comes from how clearly and confidently you can speak without ever needing to shout. A leader's voice doesn't need to overpower. It needs to resonate. It needs to connect on a deeper level to draw people in instead of pushing them back. This is the art of being heard without being loud. There's a quiet strength in those who speak with calm authority. They don't demand attention. They command it through their presence. Their voice is grounded, measured, and firm. When they speak, there's no need to compete because they're not performing, they're delivering. The volume is steady, the words deliberate. They make people lean in, not back away. The goal isn't to startle people into listening. It's to create such a strong presence that people can't help but focus. People are naturally drawn to those who radiate composure. It makes others feel secure, especially in uncertain environments. A leader who speaks with calm confidence becomes a source of stability. They're not reactive, they're centered. They don't try to prove how powerful they are by raising their voice. They prove it by maintaining control. This control becomes a magnet for attention in rooms full of noise. The one who can speak quietly and still be heard becomes the most powerful voice in the room. There is also immense trust built in a calm voice. Loudness can often signal insecurity or desperation to be noticed. But someone who speaks with quiet certainty sends a different message. I don't need to convince you with volume. I know what I'm saying, and that's enough. This kind of presence makes people want to listen. Not because they have to, but because they choose to. It feels intentional. It feels authentic. That doesn't feel like a performance. It feels like truth. Being heard without being loud also involves being emotionally aware. Leaders who speak from a place of inner stability don't let their emotions erupt through their voice. They stay steady. They stay consistent. They stay focused on the outcome, not on the need to vent or react. When others are loud, chaotic, or emotional, the one who maintains control becomes the natural leader. People crave direction in the storm. They look for the calmest voice, not the most explosive one. And that calm voice is often the one that gets remembered, respected, and followed. Another part of being heard without being loud is mastering the art of timing and silence. Leaders know when to speak and when to pause. They understand that sometimes a well-timed pause says more than 100 words. Silence can carry intensity. It can hold the room. It can create anticipation. And when they do speak, each word feels intentional and valuable. They're not filling space. They're filling mind. Their words don't echo, they land. This ability to stay composed under pressure is what separates a strong communicator from a weak one. It shows that you trust yourself. It shows that you're not here to react, you're here to lead. And when you truly believe in what you're saying, there's no need to shout it. You don't need volume to validate your value. Your presence does that for you. You become the kind of voice that others respect, not because it's loud, but because it's real, consistent, and unshakable. Pauses are one of the most underused and underestimated tools in communication. Most people are so focused on what to say next that they forget the power of silence between words. But leaders understand something different. They know that it's not just the words that carry weight, it's also the space between them. A pause is not emptiness, it's presence, it's pressure, it's intention. When you use pauses strategically, you create rhythm. You add drama, you guide attention. You allow your message to sink in, to breathe, to echo in the minds of the listeners. You stop speaking, but the impact continues. When you speak without pause, your message becomes flat. It's like running a sentence into the next without punctuation. It loses meaning. The audience struggles to keep up, and the speaker appears nervous or unsure. Rapid speech gives off the impression that you're trying to get it over with, like you're not confident enough to let your words stand on their own. But when you pause, you show control. You're not rushing. You're choosing. You're guiding. And more importantly, you're allowing others to digest what you just said. A well-placed pause does something remarkable. It makes people lean in, it creates anticipation, it draws attention without demanding it. The silence makes them listen harder because they sense something important is happening. That moment of quiet can add emphasis to your point more effectively than any rise in volume ever could. When you speak and then pause, you give the listener time to feel the weight of your words. It's in that space that reflection happens. It's in that silence that meaning grows. Leaders use pauses to separate thoughts. They don't run one idea into the next, confusing their audience with a stream of unfiltered expression. They speak, they pause, they allow. This creates structure. It helps the audience follow the narrative, understand the key ideas, and stay engaged. Without pauses, everything blends together. But with them, every sentence becomes sharper, more digestible, and more impactful. It's not just communication, it's composition. There is also power in pausing before you respond. Many people jump into replies out of habit or ego, but leaders pause. They take a breath. They consider. This shows maturity. It shows that you're not reactive, that you're not letting emotion steer your voice. You are choosing to speak from clarity, not from impulse. That pause, even if brief, becomes a marker of leadership. It says, I'm thinking, I'm intentional, I respect this conversation enough to give it a moment. Even in high-stress situations, a pause can be your strongest weapon. When others are rushing, panicking, or scrambling for answers, a pause signals calm. It shows you are not ruled by chaos. You are not letting the moment control you. You are controlling the moment. That stillness, that breath can shift the energy of an entire room. It brings the attention back to you. It grounds the conversation. It resets the tone. And when you do speak again, people listen with renewed focus. Pauses also give you time to regain your internal alignment. They prevent you from saying things you'll regret. They give your mind a second to catch up with your message. That brief silence helps you stay grounded, helps you stay authentic, and helps you stay in command. When used with purpose, a pause doesn't make you seem uncertain. It makes you appear powerful. You're not afraid of silence because you know silence is part of your message. It doesn't weaken your delivery. It strengthens it. It shows that your words are not rushed. They're measured, and that measurement builds authority. Great leaders understand the power of storytelling. They don't just share information, they create experiences. They speak in a way that makes people see, feel, and remember. Facts can inform, but stories transform. When a leader tells a story, they're not just delivering a message, they're delivering meaning. They connect ideas to real life, turning abstract concepts into relatable moments. People may forget statistics, but they'll remember how a story made them feel. That emotional imprint is what makes storytelling such a powerful leadership tool. It's not just about entertaining, it's about inspiring, teaching, and guiding through the emotional landscape of human experience. When you tell a story, you break down walls. You move past the intellect and into the heart. You create connection. And that connection builds trust. People are more likely to follow someone they feel aligned with, someone who doesn't just instruct from a distance, but invites them into a shared journey. Storytelling does that. It builds bridges between the speaker and the listener. It turns the speaker into a human being, not just a figure of authority. That vulnerability, that relatability makes the message stick. Leaders don't use stories just to talk about themselves. They use them to serve a point. Every story is chosen carefully. It has a purpose. It carries a lesson. It supports the larger message. Whether it's a personal failure, a breakthrough, or a moment of change, the story has to be relevant and real. When it's authentic, people can feel it. They engage differently. They're not just listening, they're experiencing. And that experience makes the leader's words unforgettable. The rhythm of a story allows a leader to control the energy of the room. They can build tension, create suspense, and deliver the release at just the right moment. That control over attention is what keeps audiences engaged. It's what makes a long message feel short. It's what makes a difficult truth feel easier to accept. People open up more when they're immersed in a narrative. Their defenses go down. Their minds become more flexible. They're not just being told, they're being shown. And that's where real change begins. Storytelling also helps with clarity. Complex ideas become simpler when wrapped in a story. If a leader wants to illustrate the cost of inaction, they don't just say, act now. They tell a story about what happens when people wait too long. If they want to teach about resilience, they don't recite a definition. They share a moment when they almost gave up but didn't. These stories breathe life into the message. They give it context. They give it power. They make it human. Another reason storytelling is so effective is that it engages multiple senses and emotions. It paints pictures in the mind. It activates imagination. It makes learning feel natural. Instead of forcing the audience to understand something logically, a story helps them feel it intuitively. They become part of it. They walk in someone else's shoes. And in doing so, they're more likely to carry that lesson with them long after the words have stopped. Leadership through storytelling also requires emotional intelligence. You need to know when to tell a story, how much detail to give, and how to land the point. It's not about rambling or oversharing. It's about precision and pacing. The best leaders know how to craft their stories for maximum effect. They create emotional arcs. They draw people in. They guide them through struggle, insight, and resolution. And at the end, they connect the dots back to the message. They leave the audience not just with understanding, but with transformation. Because at its core, a powerful story doesn't just explain something, it changes the way you see everything. One of the most powerful tools a leader possesses is the ability to listen with intensity. It's not about hearing words, it's about absorbing meaning, emotions, and intent. When a leader truly listens, they're not just collecting information. They're honoring the speaker. They're creating space. They're building trust. In a world full of noise, a leader who listens with full attention stands out. People notice when you actually care about what they're saying. They feel seen, heard, and valued. And that feeling opens the door to influence, cooperation, and deeper connection. Real listening is an act of respect, and respect always earns loyalty. Leadership is not about dominating the conversation. It's about mastering it. And the secret to mastering conversation is not in how much you talk, but in how well you listen. Most people listen to reply, not to understand. They're just waiting for their turn to speak. But leaders don't do that. Leaders lean in. They pause. They let silence breathe. They ask questions. They clarify. They don't assume. They explore. That curiosity makes others feel important. It makes them feel like their voice matters. And when someone feels like their voice matters, they become more open, more honest, and more committed to the relationship. Listening intensely also reveals what's not being said. It lets you pick up on tone, hesitation, body language, and subtext. A leader who listens deeply can detect fear, doubt, resistance, or passion hiding beneath the words. That kind of insight is gold because it allows you to address the real issues, not just the surface level statements. You're able to connect on a deeper level, to lead with empathy, and to communicate more effectively because you actually understand what's going on inside the other person. That awareness gives you the edge in every conversation. When you listen well, you also become more persuasive because you're not just pushing your point, you're weaving it into the needs, values, and desires of your audience. You've listened long enough to understand what matters to them. So when you speak, your words are more aligned, more strategic, and more impactful. Listening first allows you to speak last. And when you do, your message lands with power. You're not guessing, you're responding with precision. And that precision is what makes you effective. Another advantage of listening intensely is the ability to manage conflict with grace. When emotions run high and tensions rise, most people either shut down or lash out. But a leader stays centered. They listen. They let the storm pass through without reacting to it. They allow others to express themselves fully, and only then do they respond with calm authority. That presence can diffuse even the most volatile situations, because in that moment, people don't just want to be right, they want to be heard. And once they feel heard, they're more open to resolution. Listening becomes a healing act, not just a strategic one. Great leaders also use listening to empower others. They don't need to control every conversation. They know that sometimes the best thing they can do is to be silent and let someone else rise. They ask thoughtful questions and give others the floor. That humility creates confidence in the team. It shows that leadership is not about ego. It's about elevation. When people feel heard, they rise, they take ownership, they become more invested in the vision. And all of that begins with a leader who listens not with impatience, but with intensity. Listening intensely is not passive. It's a powerful, active force. It requires focus, discipline, and intention. It's not about fixing people. It's about understanding them. It's about stepping into their world long enough to see from their eyes. That kind of presence is rare, and rare presence is unforgettable. People may forget what you said, but they will never forget how fully you listened. Because in that moment, you weren't just a leader, you were a mirror, a witness, and a safe space. And that is what earns influence that lasts. Confidence is not about being the loudest person in the room or having all the answers. It's about presence. It's about the energy you carry, the certainty in your tone, and the belief in your message. People follow leaders who radiate calm assurance, not because they're perfect, but because they believe in themselves and in what they stand for. Confidence doesn't mean arrogance. It means inner certainty. It means trusting yourself enough to lead even when the path isn't fully clear. A confident speaker owns the room without demanding it. They don't have to prove anything. They simply are. And that authenticity makes them magnetic. When you speak with confidence, people pay attention differently. They lean in, not just because of what you're saying, but because of how you're saying it. Your voice becomes a vessel for trust. Your posture signals conviction. Your words carry weight because they are backed by belief. Confidence is not about perfection. It's about presence. Even if you stumble on a word or lose your train of thought, if you continue with assurance, your audience stays with you. They don't remember the slip, they remember the strength. Confidence gives your message structure. It gives your presence gravity. It makes you believable before you even begin the content of your speech. True confidence comes from preparation. Leaders who speak with poise have done the work behind the scenes. They've rehearsed, they've reflected, they've shaped their message with clarity. That preparation removes fear, because fear thrives in uncertainty. But when you're grounded in your message, you're not easily shaken. You don't rely on approval to validate your words. You deliver them because you know they matter. You've seen the value in your voice, and now you're willing to share it. That unshakable belief doesn't scream, it resonates. It doesn't chase attention, it earns respect. Confident leaders also understand that silence doesn't weaken them. They're not afraid to pause. They're not in a rush to fill every moment with words. They let their ideas land. They give their audience room to absorb and respond. That sense of control, of being unbothered by silence or resistance, is a mark of real leadership. People sense when you're grounded. They can tell when you're speaking from a place of stability, and they respond to it with attention, with respect, and often with admiration. Your inner state becomes your outer influence. When you're confident inside, you become a commanding presence outside. Another key aspect of confidence is the ability to stand alone. Leaders often have to say things others won't. They have to challenge, to disrupt, to question the norm. That takes courage. It takes self-trust. It takes the kind of inner strength that doesn't rely on applause to keep going. When you speak with that kind of boldness, people notice. Even if they don't agree, they can't ignore you. Confidence makes your voice impossible to overlook. It gives your ideas a backbone. And even in the face of criticism, it allows you to keep standing firm. Confidence also shows up in how you handle pushback. When someone challenges you, a confident leader doesn't get defensive. They get curious. They listen, they respond with clarity, and they keep their composure. That ability to stay grounded in conflict is a superpower. It tells others, you're not shaken by disagreement, you're built for it. You're secure enough to welcome dialogue and strong enough to stay rooted in your truth. That kind of resilience can't be faked. It has to be cultivated. And once it's there, it becomes the foundation of every conversation you lead. People want to follow those who believe in themselves. They want to be led by voices that don't waver at every obstacle. When you carry yourself with conviction, you give others permission to do the same. You become an example, not just of what to say, but how to say it. Your confidence becomes contagious. And in a world filled with doubt, that kind of presence is rare, and that kind of voice is unforgettable. Great leaders understand that clarity is power. When they speak, they don't aim to impress with complexity. They aim to connect through simplicity. Their message isn't buried in jargon or lost in endless details. It's focused, sharp, and unmistakably clear. People don't follow what they don't understand. If your message is confusing, your influence weakens. But when you speak with clarity, your ideas stick. They echo in people's minds long after you've left the room. Clarity makes your words memorable. It makes your leadership tangible. It gives your audience something they can act on, something they can believe in, and something they can repeat to others with confidence. Clarity starts with knowing your message deeply. A leader must be crystal clear on what they believe and what they're trying to communicate before they ever open their mouth. You can't explain something clearly if you haven't processed it yourself. That's why great communicators spend time refining their thoughts. They strip away the unnecessary until only the core truth remains. They don't clutter their language with fluff. They don't try to sound smarter than their audience. They aim for resonance, not reputation. And that intention shapes everything, from their word choice to their tone to their pacing. Every part of the delivery is focused on understanding. When you speak with clarity, you eliminate confusion and build confidence. People trust what they understand. They commit to what makes sense. If your communication is muddled, people hesitate. They don't act. They don't follow. But when your words cut through the noise like a knife, they carry direction and purpose. That kind of communication moves people. It drives decision-making. It gets results. A leader's clarity becomes a roadmap for others. It brings light to the path forward, especially when everything else feels uncertain. In times of chaos or doubt, people don't look for volume. They look for clarity. They look for the person who can make sense of the mess. Clarity also means being specific. Vague words inspire vague action. Clear words inspire precise action. Instead of saying we need to do better, a clear leader says we need to improve our response time by 30% this quarter. Instead of saying let's be more innovative, they say I want 3 new product ideas on my desk by Friday. Specificity drives clarity. It turns intentions into plans and goals into action. It gives people something they can measure, achieve, and rally around. That's how leaders build momentum, not by throwing out abstract ideals, but by making the vision actionable. To communicate clearly, a leader also needs to understand their audience. You tailor your message based on who you're speaking to. You remove assumptions, you anticipate confusion and address it before it arises. You speak in a way that fits the listener's world. You translate your message into their language. That's not dumbing it down, it's leveling it in. It's about making sure the message lands. Because if people don't get it, it doesn't matter how smart it sounds. Leadership communication isn't a performance, it's a connection. It's about getting through, not just getting attention. Clarity also reflects emotional clarity. Leaders who are clear in their speech tend to be clear in their thinking and steady in their emotions. Their inner world is organized, so their outer world feels reliable. They don't talk in circles because they're not running from their truth. They've done the inner work. They've faced the hard questions. They've found their anchor. And that self-awareness radiates through their words. People feel the weight of their clarity, not just intellectually, but emotionally. It calms the room. It unites the team. It dissolves resistance. Because clear communication doesn't just inform, it transforms. It gives people direction, certainty, and belief. And that's what turns a message into a mission. When a leader speaks, they do more than just share information. They inspire action. The way they deliver their message can spark motivation, ignite passion, and create momentum. Great leaders know that their words have energy, and that energy can either lift people up or drain them. Leadership communication is not just about what you say. It's about how you make people feel. The emotion behind your words breathes life into your message. It transforms mere statements into calls to action. It turns passive listeners into engaged participants. That emotional connection is the heartbeat of influence. To inspire, a leader must speak with genuine passion. Passion is contagious. It moves people because it's real. When a leader's voice trembles with conviction or their eyes light up with enthusiasm, the audience feels it too. It's not about theatrics or performance. It's about authenticity. People can sense when you care deeply, and that sense creates trust. When trust is present, motivation follows. Your message stops being just information and becomes a shared vision that others want to be part of. Passionate leadership language invites others to join you on a journey, not just to follow orders. Another key to inspiring speech is the use of vivid language. Strong leaders paint pictures with words. They create mental images that make their message tangible and relatable. Instead of vague promises, they describe the future so clearly you can almost see it, feel it, taste it. That clarity of vision excites people. It makes the goal feel attainable and worthwhile. When leaders use vivid language, they help others imagine themselves succeeding, growing, and making a difference. That vision drives motivation because people don't just hear your words, they experience them. A leader's tone also carries immense power. The same sentence can inspire or discourage depending on how it's said. Leaders master the art of tone, knowing when to raise their voice to emphasize urgency, when to soften it to show empathy, and when to pause for impact. That control over tone shapes the emotional journey of the listener. It keeps them engaged and emotionally connected. It's a rhythm that moves people forward. Without that emotional rhythm, speeches can feel flat and forgettable. But with it, they become memorable and motivating. Repetition is another tool that leaders use to inspire. When a powerful idea is repeated with intention, it sticks in the mind. It becomes a mantra that people carry with them. Leaders don't repeat for the sake of filling time. They repeat to reinforce what matters most. That reinforcement builds belief and determination. It helps anchor the message deep in the listener's heart. People need that repetition because change is rarely instant. They need to hear the call to action again and again before they take the leap. Leaders understand this and use repetition strategically to keep the flame of motivation burning. Inspiration also comes from storytelling, where emotion and vision combine. When leaders share stories of challenge and triumph, they give others a roadmap. They show that obstacles are not dead ends, but stepping stones. Those stories motivate because they're proof that success is possible, even when the odds seem stacked against you. They build resilience and hope. And hope is the fuel that keeps people moving forward when the journey gets tough. Leaders who weave inspiration into their speech create not just followers, but believers who are ready to act. Leaders who inspire don't just focus on what's possible. They make it personal. They speak to the hopes, dreams, and fears of their audience. They acknowledge the challenges, but highlight the potential. They invite people to see themselves as part of something bigger. That personal connection is a powerful motivator because it shifts perspective from I can't to I will. It builds courage and commitment. When leaders speak to the heart, they unlock the will to move mountains. That's the difference between empty words and transformative leadership. Inspiration through speech is also about timing. Knowing when to push forward with enthusiasm and when to allow space for reflection is crucial. Leaders sense the mood of the room. They respond to energy levels and adjust accordingly. This awareness makes their message feel timely and relevant. It's not just what you say, but when you say it that creates impact. Perfect timing turns a good speech into a great one. It ensures your message lands when people are ready to receive it, making inspiration more powerful and lasting. Inspiring speech is about connection. It's about meeting people where they are and lifting them higher. It's about using words as a bridge from the present to the future. When leaders master this, their communication becomes a force for change. It's no longer just talk. It's a spark that lights a fire in the hearts of others, driving them to act, to believe, and to become more than they ever imagined possible. When leaders speak, they do more than convey information. They tell stories. Stories are the heartbeat of communication because they tap into something deeply human, our natural love for narrative. Great leaders know that facts alone rarely move people. What moves people are stories that connect on an emotional level, stories that make ideas come alive, stories that paint pictures of possibility. A well-told story creates a shared experience. It makes the abstract tangible and the distant near. It invites others into your vision, not as passive observers, but as active participants. Storytelling is the art of leadership language because it transforms messages into memories. Stories create connection by showing vulnerability and authenticity. When a leader shares a personal story about a challenge faced, a lesson learned, or a moment of doubt, it breaks down barriers. It reminds people that leaders are human too, that vulnerability builds trust. People are drawn to leaders who are real, who admit their struggles, and who reveal their journey. Those stories show that success is not about perfection, but about perseverance. They inspire others to embrace their own path, including the bumps and detours. That authenticity makes leadership relatable and achievable. Another reason storytelling is so powerful is that it simplifies complex ideas. Leaders often deal with big concepts, abstract goals, or strategic plans that can feel overwhelming. Stories distill those complexities into memorable moments. They turn theories into experiences and statistics into characters. When you tell a story, you're painting with details that make the message easier to understand and remember. That clarity makes your communication stick. It helps your audience grasp not just the what, but the why and the how. Stories give context and meaning, making your leadership vision more accessible. Leaders also use storytelling to inspire action. A compelling story creates emotional investment. It stirs the imagination. It makes people see themselves in the journey. That emotional engagement motivates behavior. Instead of issuing dry commands or abstract goals, storytelling invites people to care deeply. It creates a sense of purpose and urgency. People don't just follow because they have to. They follow because they want to be part of something bigger. Stories awaken passion and commitment in ways that facts alone cannot. Timing and pacing are critical elements of storytelling and leadership. Great leaders know when to slow down for emphasis, when to build tension, and when to release it. They use pauses to let key moments resonate. They vary their tone and pace to keep listeners engaged. That rhythm creates a dynamic experience that pulls people in, it keeps their attention, and makes the message unforgettable. Storytelling is not just about the words you choose. It's about how you deliver them. The emotional dance of story makes your leadership communication come alive. Stories also help leaders shape culture. The stories you tell repeatedly become the foundation of shared values and identity. They teach what your organization stands for and what it will not tolerate. They set examples of behavior, resilience, and success. When stories align with actions, they reinforce credibility and inspire trust. Culture is built not just through policies, but through the narratives leaders keep alive. Those narratives guide decisions, inspire innovation, and create unity. Storytelling is a tool for shaping the environment where people work and grow. Another powerful aspect of storytelling is its ability to humanize data. Leaders often have to present numbers, results, or metrics. While data is essential, it rarely inspires on its own. Stories give data a soul. They show what those numbers mean in real life. They highlight the impact on people, communities, or customers. That human element makes the information more compelling and easier to relate to. When leaders combine data with stories, they appeal to both the logical and emotional sides of their audience. That balanced communication drives stronger buy-in and commitment. Leaders who master storytelling understand that stories need a clear message or moral. Every story you tell should reinforce your core vision or values. It should have a takeaway that guides behavior or thinking. Stories without a point become distractions, but stories with purpose become powerful tools of influence. They help people internalize your message on a deeper level. They create mental anchors that people return to when making decisions or facing challenges. A clear, consistent narrative creates coherence and strength in leadership communication. Importantly, storytelling also empowers others to share their stories. When leaders create space for others to tell their own experiences, they build a culture of openness and learning. That exchange deepens relationships and expands collective wisdom. It turns leadership from a one-way broadcast into a two-way conversation. Sharing stories becomes a way to celebrate diversity, overcome obstacles, and build resilience. Leaders who encourage storytelling foster engagement, loyalty, and innovation. Ultimately, storytelling is about making leadership memorable, meaningful, and motivating. It transforms ordinary messages into extraordinary moments. It bridges gaps between people, ideas, and emotions. When leaders speak through stories, they create connections that transcend facts and figures. They invite others into a shared vision, inspire action, and build lasting influence. Storytelling is not just a technique, it's the soul of leadership communication. Listening is one of the most overlooked yet powerful tools in leadership communication. While many focus on how to speak like a leader, true leadership begins with how well you listen. Listening is not just about hearing words, it's about understanding the meaning behind them, reading between the lines, and tuning into emotions. When leaders listen actively, they show respect and create trust. People feel valued and understood, which strengthens relationships and builds loyalty. Listening opens the door to better communication because it shifts the focus from speaking to connecting. It transforms conversations from one-sided speeches into meaningful dialogues. Active listening requires more than just silence. It demands full attention, presence, and empathy. Great leaders don't just wait for their turn to speak. They engage deeply with what others are saying. They observe body language, tone of voice, and unspoken cues. They ask clarifying questions to ensure they truly grasp the message. This kind of listening is a skill that must be practiced intentionally. It's about suspending judgment and resisting the urge to interrupt or jump to conclusions. By giving others space to express themselves fully, leaders gather richer insights and uncover hidden opportunities or concerns. This leads to better decision-making and more effective problem-solving. Listening also helps leaders adapt their communication style to the needs of their audience. When you listen carefully, you learn what motivates, worries, and excites those you lead. You can tailor your message to resonate more deeply and address real issues. Without listening, leaders risk speaking past their audience or missing key signals of disengagement or resistance. Listening keeps communication relevant. It allows leaders to adjust their tone, language, and content in real time based on feedback. This flexibility enhances influence and fosters collaboration. Moreover, listening builds psychological safety within teams. When people know they will be heard without judgment or dismissal, they feel safe to share ideas, raise concerns, and admit mistakes. This openness leads to innovation and continuous improvement. Leaders who listen create environments where creativity flourishes and people take ownership. They send a powerful message. Every voice matters. That message fuels engagement and commitment. It strengthens the culture and drives performance. Listening also plays a crucial role in conflict resolution. Many conflicts escalate because parties feel unheard or misunderstood. A leader who listens well can defuse tension by acknowledging feelings and clarifying misunderstandings. Listening creates a space for empathy and dialogue, allowing solutions to emerge that respect everyone's perspective. This approach transforms conflict from a barrier into an opportunity for growth and stronger relationships. Leaders who master listening become trusted mediators and builders of unity. Beyond individual conversations, listening is essential for leaders to stay connected to the broader organization or community. It keeps them grounded in reality and attuned to changing dynamics. Leaders who listen well can anticipate challenges, identify trends, and sense shifts in morale or culture. This situational awareness is invaluable for strategic planning and timely communication. It helps leaders stay ahead rather than reacting after the fact. Listening becomes a proactive tool for shaping the future. In addition, listening is a form of humility. It requires setting aside ego and recognizing that you don't have all the answers. Leaders who listen demonstrate that leadership is not about dominance, but about service. They honor the wisdom and experience of others. This humility invites collaboration and shared ownership of vision and goals. It breaks down hierarchical barriers and creates a more inclusive and empowering leadership style. Listening also deepens emotional intelligence, a critical leadership competency. By tuning into others' emotions and perspectives, leaders develop greater empathy and self-awareness. This emotional insight enhances communication effectiveness and strengthens relationships. Leaders who listen with emotional intelligence can navigate difficult conversations with grace and authenticity. They build trust by showing they care not just about tasks, but about people. Listening models the behavior leaders want to see. When leaders prioritize listening, they set a standard for open communication and respect within their teams. It encourages others to listen better, fostering a culture of mutual understanding and cooperation. This ripple effect elevates the entire organization's communication and collaboration. Listening is not passive. It is an active, intentional leadership practice that shapes the quality of every interaction and ultimately the success of the team or organization. Confidence in communication is the cornerstone of speaking like a leader. It's the invisible force that makes your words carry weight and your presence command attention. When a leader speaks with confidence, it signals certainty, competence, and credibility. People naturally gravitate toward those who speak with assurance, because confidence reassures them that the leader knows what they're talking about and that their vision is worth following. Confidence is not about arrogance or speaking loudly. It's about a calm, steady belief in your message and in yourself. This belief creates a magnetic effect that draws people in and inspires trust. Confidence grows from preparation and knowledge. Leaders who thoroughly understand their topic and audience feel more secure when communicating. Preparation removes doubt and hesitation, allowing your true voice to emerge. When you know your material inside and out, you can speak fluidly and respond to questions without faltering. This mastery reduces anxiety and boosts self-assurance. Confident communication is less about perfection and more about readiness. It's the difference between stumbling through a speech and delivering it with ease and impact. Body language plays a vital role in expressing confidence. Leaders who stand tall, make eye contact, and use purposeful gestures reinforce their spoken message. Nonverbal cues often speak louder than words. Confident posture signals that you believe in your message and invite others to believe in it too. Avoiding nervous habits like fidgeting or looking away strengthens your presence. The alignment of your body language with your words creates authenticity and power. When what you say matches how you present yourself, your confidence becomes contagious. Voice quality is another key factor. Speaking clearly with a well-modulated tone and appropriate volume projects confidence. Leaders vary their pitch and pace to maintain interest and emphasize important points. A steady voice conveys control and composure, even when discussing difficult topics. Pausing strategically shows thoughtfulness rather than uncertainty. Confident speakers avoid filler words like or like, which can undermine authority. Practicing vocal techniques helps leaders develop a voice that commands respect and engages listeners. Overcoming fear and self-doubt is essential for confident communication. Many people fear public speaking or worry about being judged. Leaders confront these fears by focusing on the purpose of their message rather than on themselves. Shifting attention away from personal insecurities and toward the value they offer helps calm nerves. Visualization techniques, deep breathing, and positive self-talk are practical tools leaders use to build confidence. Experience is also a great teacher. The more you speak with intention, the more natural confidence becomes. Confidence also involves owning your mistakes and imperfections. Leaders who admit when they don't know something or acknowledge errors demonstrate honesty and humility. This openness builds credibility because it shows authenticity. People respect leaders who are genuine and willing to learn. Confidence is not about pretending to be flawless. It's about trusting yourself enough to navigate challenges with grace and resilience. That trust encourages others to have confidence in you too. Another important aspect is the ability to handle difficult questions or opposition calmly. Confident leaders listen carefully, respond thoughtfully, and maintain composure under pressure. They don't get defensive or evasive. Instead, they use challenges as opportunities to reinforce their message or clarify misunderstandings. This calm assertiveness strengthens their authority and deepens respect. It shows that confidence is rooted in substance, not ego. Confidence in leadership communication also means being decisive. Hesitation or ambiguity can create doubt in your audience. Clear, assertive language signals that you have a plan and are ready to lead. Using direct statements and avoiding vague or tentative phrasing strengthens your position. Decisiveness reassures others that the leader is in control and capable of guiding them through uncertainty. Building confidence is an ongoing process. It requires practice, feedback, and reflection. Leaders who actively seek opportunities to speak, learn from each experience, and refine their skills grow stronger over time. They develop a resilient mindset that embraces challenges as chances to improve. Confidence becomes a habit rather than a fleeting feeling. Confident communication is about presence, showing up fully and authentically in each moment. It's about believing that your voice matters and that your message has value. When leaders communicate with confidence, they not only influence minds, but also inspire hearts. That influence shapes culture, drives action, and leaves a lasting legacy. Confidence is the foundation upon which all other leadership communication skills are built.